Okay, we are live for episode 42 of Beyond the CMS. And it's my intent to have special guests join and talk about the future of content and content operations and how content is published and content platforms and systems. The idea is ask us anything. If you're watching now, we're live on LinkedIn. And in the future, leave comments on the YouTube channels and we'll do our best to get back to you. But that's really the spirit, just to have a really good chat about all things related to digital content and publishing. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in right now. I know it's lunchtime here on the East Coast, and we have a super special guest this episode, Joel Varty, who's CTO over at Agility CMS, our favorite partner, Canadian content platform. And I'm going to just let you introduce yourself as well, but super great to have you on the show again. We've been working together for a long time and just love your insights and thoughts. So thank you for making time on your lunch hour.
I appreciate you having me on, Chris. Yeah, I just celebrated my 21st anniversary at Agility, which is wild. First of all, for a software company to be around that long, but you guys have been around the same? Almost?
Same. We've been
right?
We've been driving together, since our King Street days, and
yeah, crazy.
Absolutely.
And what I was just reflecting back too, because Agility is bootstrapped, never taken a dime of venture capital or any of that other stuff. So it's I think one of the reasons why we've lasted this long, and we've had customers that have been with us almost the whole time, which is really cool. Just by being bootstrapped and being able to be masters of our own universe, which is cool.
Yeah, and one of the things that we often talk about internally here is like we've been building Headless since before Headless. I think back in the day, one of the generations of Agility was a .NET Headless. We didn't call it that at the time, but it was decoupled architecture. And I remember when one of the founders there, John, and walked into our shop with his briefcase. And he's like, "Hey guys, you want to take a look at our content platform? It's like decoupled and it's pretty cool." I'm like, "Damn, that's good thinking." And I know under your guidance, it's changed, morphed, and turned into a really beautiful thing. Do you want to just talk a little bit about like Agility CMS, what it is to maybe folks that don't know? And we often attract marketing folks, CMOs, VPs of marketing, folks who need to make these kind of more complicated technical decisions for their publishing and content platforms.
Yeah, so Agility is a Canadian-based headless CMS aimed at developers and marketers, more on the marketers side, but certainly developers love our platform as well. Headless with page management, component management, allows you to kind of take all the content that's in your design system and take it out of the code so that your marketers can work with pages and essentially build an entire website or an app without having to get a developer involved once the code has been created for those components. And mostly for I'd say mid to large size enterprises are the ones where we're the most successful. Starting to see a lot of folks moving off of the older DXPs now, especially as some of those DXPs are mandating the move to their cloud and the sort of the big changes that. So people are starting to think about maybe we want to actually start out, on the headless journey or even the cloud journey or a composable journey as part of their digital transformation. So a lot of folks are kind of getting there. I think of it as a little behind, but from an enterprise point of view, they will always lag, right? They will always lag the early adopters, and so that seems to be where a lot of those folks are hitting right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love the platform for both of those key points that you mentioned. Our developers love it. And our clients love it, who are really the folks involved in publishing all day long. You mentioned a couple key catchphrases there. I thought maybe I'd ask for your explanation. We sometimes use the parts of the video for later, and I've always asked, what's your opinion? How do you define headless, first of all? Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. So headless really means decoupled is another way, or API-based is another way, composable. There's lots of these terms that are kind of the same thing. And really, when I think of it as there's the CMS that's here that provides your content that makes it available through an API. And then when you create something, whether it be a website or an app or whatever's going to consume that data, it's in another place. And one of the benefits of that among many other things, is that you can rebuild your website, without having to rebuild all your content, because your code is not in your content. Whereas in a non-headless system, it's all kind of connected. But I think lately, the biggest benefit has been you can add AI onto an API-based system, a headless system, so much easier. And so all of the headless tools like Agility have been able to take advantage of like MCP servers and AI agents to automate their content pipelines especially for marketing teams and developers, so much easier than all the traditional packages that are not headless, not API based.
I'm just itching to show some examples of that. When you also talked about this term like DXP, there's monolithic, headless, composable. What do you kind of consider a DXP to be as it differentiates from maybe what Agility is?
So a DXP tries to put all the features in one box. And usually that means putting like your website is part of that box as well as the CMS, but usually it'll include things like commerce, search, personalization, you name it. They'll just keep adding it in, which is why they tend to be a lot more complex. Usually they're very technology based. So if you're using like a .NET DXP, you can only code in .NET for that. You have to follow exactly those paradigms for coding with it. Very, very like lots of learning curve to kind of get in and use that. Whereas with a headless system, it's composable. So like Agility doesn't provide a search or commerce, but there are other headless providers that you can use as best of breed for those. So you get to pick and choose what is the best. And what I think is interesting is for a lot of DXP systems, for instance, if you take search, a lot of folks are on a DXP that has a search built in, but they'll use like Algolia for search as well because it's better. So why were you using why'd you pay for this big DXP? And a lot of folks are starting to come to that realization.
Interesting. And part of this composable ecosystem is an association called MACH, the MACH Alliance. I know Agility is part of that. Can you describe what that is? Because that's valuable for some marketers to know about how that association works and what it stands for.
Yeah, so for someone like for a company like Agility as a vendor, we only provide content. There's a lot of other vendors out there that provide only their thing. So search, personalization, analytics, all of those vendors are part of this. Not all of them, but a lot of them are part of this alliance that also includes, there's some agency organizations that are part of that help implement these things and help put them together. And we call it 100% whole product. We think of it like a pie. And there's going to be multiple vendors, sometimes multiple implementation partners, not always, are going to be part of implementing a solution for a customer, and they all have to work together. And the alliance, the MACH Alliance really dictates ways that, first of all, it doesn't let members in unless they are headless and composable. And it also gives guidelines about how they should work together and how they can form better partnerships for customers, which makes it easier for an enterprise customer to come in and say, yeah, I want to use this CMS. I want to use this for search and you guys and then that's not a forever decision, right? Sometimes it might be, well, you know what, we've grown beyond, this commerce provider. Now we're going to go to that commerce provider, or our the nature of our business has changed. Maybe we don't even have commerce anymore. We're going to do this other thing. The MACH Alliance can help pivot from between different vendors and different solution architectures. They've got so much going on. There's a huge focus on speed now, like how fast it is to get things set up, and AI, how to implement AI, how to get multi-agent things working in your organization, and how to build like security and like secure things with AI in an enterprise organization, which that's a big question for a lot of companies right now.
Right. And when you say composable, just for folks who are not familiar with this idea, and to Joel's point, if you're building a website that has maybe search, commerce, other systems involved in it, well, you may outgrow a system or you may not need a system anymore. Yeah. And that gives you the flexibility and agility to kind of swap bits and pieces out. But we love agility at the core. Something else I wanted to just highlight is how cool it is that Agility is Canadian. And there is emphasis these days and acknowledgement or slight concern about where is data being stored and who are the companies that you're working with. And I just really love the fact that Agility is enterprise grade and Canadian. I don't know what liberty you are at to talk about some of your customers, but for those that you can talk about, it'd be great to know about a bit about maybe some case studies or some real success stories over your years.
certainly with some of our bigger Canadian customers, like Cineplex has been a long-running, huge success story with us. Scotiabank's another one. We actually have their Latin American and South American banks. So they've been a huge success story. Scene.ca is on Agility. So some of these bigger organizations done really well. I can't mention specifically, but we do have some government websites that are on Agility as well. Some really interesting things that they have done with their implementations of composable to maintain data sovereignty for those websites, especially for ones that were really are really high profile. So it's some interesting things where, like, how do you use technology to promote that data sovereignty and to make sure that all of the different aspects of that thing are going to be secure and sort of protected against bad actors, which is kind of wild when you get into the depths of it. Even if it's not that complex, like the complexity of the system doesn't matter as much as the sort of how rock solid is the security around it and the data processing and data residency.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And is your role as CTO, what's on your mind these days? Like, what's happening in the future of content, and to what extent you can share your roadmap, and where's Agility's role in kind of staying up with the times and being kind of future forward, I guess?
We think of CMS as, if you think of your project as a house or maybe an office building is actually probably a better one with like multiple floors. The CMS is the foundation almost always. And it actually hasn't changed that much. What you can do with CMS really is a foundational thing. There's always other bits and pieces that you can add in that are more like convenience things for marketing teams or developers. So we're looking at, like, we add lots of bells and whistles. So we've done lots of stuff lately with, like, we've got a couple of customers, like one of our customers is Epson International. They have 30 locales that they make, they sell printers and stuff, which seems old school, but the way they're doing their commerce is actually very cool. And just the fact that they have so many different locales that they manage, that's a real challenge for their teams to do that, especially when, does anyone speak all those languages? No. Right? So we've put in some tooling for that just rolled out last week. We're putting some translation tooling in that I can't talk too much about, but that should be really exciting for folks to hook up things like DeepL and basically whatever translation service they want. So we pulled our customers that are doing multi-locale things and said, okay, how can we make your lives better? Because they're just managing that much more content.
Right.
Also doing a ton with AI, answering a lot of questions. We have a different take on AI than a lot of other vendors, where we don't believe, at least at this point, that it's worth putting it in the product, but how do we get Agility's things into your AI agent that you use? And most people are using Claude these days. I think, has anybody not moved to Claude?
Everyone I know, the last month has been a real change, or maybe the last 2 months, there's significant movement. Yeah.
So that's been huge for us, just to sort of show people how to for both development and marketer workflows, which we can hopefully talk about later. But that's been huge. But also just answering questions about the security nature. I recently just redid our internal data security policy for AI, just to make it super clear. Like, for the 4 tiers of data that we've already got, what AI tools can you use, if any, for some of those, and how do they work? Because if you're using like Microsoft Copilot, there's a much different licensing structure than a Claude. And if you're on Claude Enterprise versus Teams versus Personal versus Free, they operate completely differently with your data, even though you might get a similar experience with the agent. So it's been eye-opening to teach that internally, but I spend a lot of time just teaching that, which has nothing to do with CMS. But how data works is something it's really scaled beyond the IT teams now, and like marketing teams. CFOs are really interested in that because there's a legal aspect of, how's this data going to be used. And that's why data sovereignty has become a much bigger question, because if it's maybe it's a European customer and they're that's just a much bigger conversation there now. So having all those conversations with customers is a lot of fun.
And how do you keep track of everything as the lead of the product? Like, what's your world like? You must have some cool AI workflows to keep you up to date. But I do love your position on where AI is integrated into and with Agility. Lots of vendors are embedding AI inside. There's MCP servers to connect things. And yeah, I guess it's interesting to see how things are unfolding. We find most of our clients are creating their content somewhere outside of the content platform. I don't think that concept of actually managing content in the CMS ever really took off, but they're running it through their workflows externally. So I think you've got a good position on that. It's how do you connect these systems together? You mentioned a term, content operations, which I think is becoming more colloquial within the marketing world. And they're realizing that marketers are essentially publishers. And that means that you've got kind of to operate content and create it and I guess create variants of it, have it governed properly, translated, like you said. What's your kind of, I guess, definition of what is content operations in your mind, and how is Agility adjusting to that aspect?
I mean, you could simplify it as content operations is the act of someone coming up with the idea for content, and somehow it gets created in like a Google Doc or a Word doc, and then gets copied into a CMS and published. Like, it's really those 4 steps. It's if you're taking it down to what I think is kind of the simplest boiling point for most marketing teams, and that's enterprise marketing teams too. There's probably an Excel sheet in there too with a list of tasks that somebody might be using at its lowest level. Lots of people still using Excel for task management. But that's usually what it is. You know, someone's like saying, hey, they have this content calendar of like, hey, we need to have this stuff out there. And a lot of it used to be for SEO, but now it's for AEO and GEO. And that's why it's really up the ante, because SEO wasn't as much about telling the truth and about your company and putting knowledge out there. It was about search ranking, right? Which is like, kind of felt like black magic to some people. And, you know, there was rules and stuff. And I hope they were telling the truth, but a lot of it wasn't about truth. It was about ranking. I want to be on the first page. I want to be the first hit. That's all people really cared about. Whereas now I want my content operations. So that pipeline of steps of, I have an idea about something that I want to put on the internet about our company or about our product or whatever, or something I'm trying to use to generate leads. I have an idea for that. How do I actually get that published? And what are the steps in the middle? That's content operations. And who's going to be involved in that? What's the strategy that we're going to do to sort of keep that going? And AI plays a big part in that if you want it to, because I think as people used to be typing things into Word or Google Docs, they're now typing them into their AI agent as a prompt, getting a bunch of stuff back, which might be research. It might be that they just format that thing in, you know, there as opposed to doing it in Word. And some of that is collaborative now with Claude Cowork. Mm-hmm. And then they're clicking send, which is pushing that into the CMS and doing a bunch of work from there. And then what we're seeing is people are doing the approvals and the publishes from the CMS, which is what they always did, right? Mm-hmm. They're always copying and pasting. So instead of copying and pasting, the agents are pushing that in there for them. And then now you have a human reviewer who's previewing it and making sure that all the formatting is right and all that sort of stuff. So the question was content operations, but I think the impetus for it is agent optimization. Yeah. So because now Google is showing a summary, or people are using ChatGPT or Claude to like search the internet, you want to make sure that they're, first of all, finding the information about your company or your product or whatever it is that is your message, and that you want it to be true and you want it to be available to those agents. And so that has become a huge part of why content operations has become way more important as opposed to just a search ranking sort of methodology. Mm-hmm. It's about truth now, because you want your message coming out as opposed to maybe your competitors or something less relevant than you think yours is. And you're hoping that will have enough identification in there so that people will eventually come to your wherever is. Maybe you're trying to sell a product, maybe you're trying to get leads. They'll come to your website or your app and actually engage with it there. And because there's been so much traffic lost, SEO is not the big game anymore, right? Because people are not clicking on links. So if you can get someone to actually come to your website, they tend to be much more informed than before. So your traffic has dropped, but your engagement of the people that do make it is much higher. They're much more likely to convert. And that has driven content operations like, boom, there's so much more effort being put into it.
Yeah, you're totally right. We've noticed that too. It's the folks that are coming to our site, almost 100% are exactly the people we want to be there, because especially through the filter of coming from AI. Maybe a little bit of a shameless plug for both Dotfusion and Agility. If you type in best headless agency Canada, we both come up. Oh, and a large part of that is because Dotfusion's website is built on agility, and that super clean Next and React combination, along with really structured schema, and just like you said, telling the story on the site is so key.
Yeah.
So if that's a snippet for later, agility is great infrastructure for AEO and SEO, and we can prove it. So that's super cool. I know you had some cool stuff that maybe you wanted to show, and I'm with you as well, but there's a little bit of moving things around to get us into demo mode. But Joel, if you want to like do some demonstrations of stuff, I know you've been rocking some things out agentically,
sure,
agility, and just love seeing what you're up to.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Give me 2 seconds here. I want to show something. I actually put a video on this on LinkedIn yesterday, and I'm so glad that we have maybe an opportunity to. Can you let me share my screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just figure out how to do this. Obviously, we are not a highly scripted show here. There we go. Okay, cool.
So this is my Claude project for my own personal blog, which is built using Agility CMS. I started blogging way more often now because I can do it like through my phone on Claude. So yesterday I did a run and I hit 42 on my VO2 max, which I was like super excited.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
I actually know what you mean.
Cool. Like, yeah, dudes over 40 know that number, right? I've been trying to get over 40 for a long time, and to get 42 was like, I felt great. I want to talk about it. But normally I'm like, maybe I would put it on like a Facebook or Instagram or something, but now I put it on my blog, because I want to own my content on the internet. And I also, there's a CMS I know that works really well. I might as well just use it.
It's a thing, right?
And I had never really used it that much before for my own personal stuff. So what I did is I created a Claude project, and in the instructions for my project, I just basically copied and pasted a skill that I had created in Claude Code. So as a developer, I wrote my website using Claude Code and Agility and the MCP server for Agility. But for this, all I had to do now, like literally, I dictated this. Actually, maybe I wrote it in the Notes app. I don't even remember. And then copied and pasted like a doc to say, hey, how does Apple's Fitness Health actually do, this? And I took a screenshot on my phone. So this is the hard part for me that I would never do before. But that's actually not that hard. The hard thing is like getting it into the CMS and publishing it. So you can see where I click send here, and what it did is it actually gave me a preview link. So I can click on here and actually open that link, which opens over my browser. So I got StreamYard running on a separate tab, sorry. And so like it literally published it for me, formatted it nicely, but didn't change my logic, because that's part of my prompt. And now I can actually, once I'm good with that, I can actually click on this edit link and actually edit it right in the CMS as well. So I don't let it publish for me. I just let it get into draft mode. I don't trust AI to actually publish things yet. I'll probably get there. But now it's filled out. I filled out all these forms for me, figured out all this stuff. I use Markdown for it, because that's like AI does a great job of doing Markdown. And I just click preview in here, make sure it's all nice, and then publish it. So I've been blogging at least 2 or 3 times a week since Christmas, when I redid my website over the Christmas holidays. And not only is it a great developer tool for using Claude Code, which seems obvious, but it's great for essentially me as a marketer, in this case, marketing my own personal brand, because I can just use it so easily on any device that Claude is on, which is really cool. And I know you guys were doing something similar too for the Dotfusion blog. And I thought, it seems like a no-brainer, right?
It's just I think one of the concepts that doesn't get talked about enough, and you just hit it, it's like, if publishing your content is fun, you're going to do it more, right? And cutting and pasting from a form thing, it's just there's some friction there for more of a less structured person like I am. I just want to have some fun with it, right? So some key points there, like agility is just so flexible to use with kind of whatever agentic stack. I've run ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is. And it connects really beautifully through MCP and APIs. So agility is kind of like open door, however you want to go in.
Yeah.
I mentioned the APIs. I just got back. There was, I'm part of the N8N community here in Toronto, and N8N is essentially a more kind of an enterprise grade workflow automation tool. It's completely unbiased to what tools you're connecting it to, but it works really wonderfully with agility. So let's say you want to control your content supply chain, but if it's for enterprise and you want logs and you want to know exactly what's going on in every stage of that supply chain, N8N is a valuable tool. And what it does is parse information directly into Agility. You can use webhooks, APIs, or it's MCP server. So it's just so much fun to use. And we just noticed, I think SAP just adopted that. It's kind of like the Zapier for enterprise. But at the end of the day, Agility is a super endpoint for that. But if you're open to it, I'd love to show a bit of a workflow we have similar to you in Spirit, because we're blog posting so much more because it's so much fun. It's almost like watching a magic trick, which is half the joy of it all.
Sure way.
All right, let's see here. I'm going to try and do some stuff as well. Let's see what happens here. All right. So what we're looking at here is basically we have a pretty heavy system for creating blog posts. And the process that we believe in is that you send something out on a bit of a mission, and we have a fairly robust topic research. So there's a research phase, there's a verification phase of all of the links, there's kind of an anti-slop phase, then there's a writing phase, and then we edit. And then as part of our kind of long form blog post workflow, which is kind of 3,000 to 4,000 words, we actually create a special phase, which is the Agility output phase. So what you're looking at here is I was using Claude in this case, where I pasted the long form output from another tool we use to create all the content. And it's created and refactored all of the content to fit exactly with each little field in the blog content model we have in Agility. And this is really how easy it is. I drop in the markdown file for the blog post. It kind of goes, hey, here's what I'm going to be doing, and here's a bit of the metadata around it. These are literally all of the fields in our blog content model in Agility. And it's got it all ready and staging in there. And then we just kind of pop over, this is what it looks like in Agility. And the way we have actually a lot of little fields of data associated with each post, all the way down to very schema specific stuff.
You get the JSON LD for it as well.
It's a whole jam, dude. Yeah. And then it's kind of like, bang, here's kind of, exactly what we got here for the blog post. So yeah, super stoked about all this stuff, and it's just really a joy,
Well, the first time you show a marketer all those fields, they're like, first of all, what do these names mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to a regular human, right? Especially if someone more technical set the fields up, and maybe they got different names, and sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. It's like, but why do they have to go through that cognitive overhead when really a great writer is just going to write that first thing? That's the most valuable thing, is that first long form piece of content. That should be the thing a marketer focuses on, and AI can just take care of all the rest of the details for you, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, you're totally right. And then we've adopted a bit of that strategy as well. And when you have your AI tools hooked into Google Search Console, hooked into your analytics, and it's helping you adjust the type of content you want to be writing, your spirit comes out in the content regardless of what it is. But Agility makes it a joy to be publishing. So that's awesome. And I'm kind of not a marketing publishing person, but I've been doing a lot of it lately. So having a really good time with that. And so are our customers. So
sweet.
Awesome work. Just thinking about the future, what's on the roadmap? Where are things shifting? Maybe from even an industry perspective. You mentioned that some of the big heavy hitter DXPs, they are kind of moving people off the on-prem into cloud. Great opportunity to kind of make things a bit more simple for marketers. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and what I'm seeing in our industry is that, I've seen this cycle go a few times. If you've been in the industry a long time, you know it. So like even the DXPs that are out there now, like the Sicors, the AEMs, they started off small. They started off just as a CMS. And really what happened is they became DXPs as they try to get more of that pie we talked about. That's what every company wants, especially if it's venture capital funded. They're trying to get more of that revenue. I want all of it. And I'm seeing some of the vendors basically adapt more of the services now. So they're trying to be implementers. they're buying up the adjacent competitors. So not buying up the CMS competitors, they're buying up personalization, search, analytics, CDP, because they want more of that pie. And so I think that term is going to be called composable DXP. I don't know, which is to me, it's like creating the same problem that Headless was created to solve. So we're not doing that. I'm not saying we're never going to bring in more technology if it makes sense, but we're staying true to, we do content great, and we believe AI should stay for now, at least in the premier agents like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. And we're just going to enable those workflows and sort of teach people how to use it safely. And if we think of CMS as a diamond. Actually, my director of product talked to me about this. CMS is a diamond. Our product is this diamond that all we're going to do is to just chip off edges. We're actually going to take things away. We're going to make it simpler. We're going to make it faster, and we're going to make it shinier. And so sometimes, like the new things we just added for locales, for instance, I kind of think like we just chipped away at a bunch of steps that someone had to go through. And now if you manage multiple locales, you don't have to click as many times. Little things like that make a huge difference for our customers. It's awesome because new customers love it because you can talk about it, but it also keeps our existing customers from, like, they feel the love. It's like, hey, we're looking at what you guys want, and we want you to be our customer forever. And we're going to work to earn that. We're going to provide value in every interaction that we have with you. We've also started doing a lot more like audits for folks. We got a customer that's been around 10 years. That stuff gets stale. They need new architecture. They want to move from old .NET sites into a newer architecture. They need help with that. So we've been working with that. So we don't do the implementations, but we just have the conversations about, hey, you can get a ton of benefits by working with somebody like Dotfusion. They can rebuild your website, and it didn't need to be this 2-year ordeal that you might have gone through with a previous DXP. So it doesn't have to be that hard, and you can take a much more incremental approach now. So just having those high-level discussions has been a lot of fun.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's almost like we're realizing the promise of what was part of our value pitch, our sales pitch 7 years ago, which is when the time comes, you don't need to move the hub. We're just going to represent it. Yeah. And now they're like, damn, that was a good idea. Like, cool, we can rebrand, but all of that legacy of content and its structure stays the same. Well, super cool.
I have found it that people are more open to that idea now, more than ever before, about being more agile with their approach to how they're going to put their technology stack together, as opposed to this, I need one big thing. Now they're understanding the power of having a few different things, not too many, but a few different things that a vendor can take, or that an implementer can take and sort of build those digital properties that are important to them, whether it be a website or an app or just data pipelines throughout their infrastructure.
The data pipelines is an interesting term too. We have a client on Agility that's pushing data out into a mapping software, kiosks, display screens around their place. It's kind of really this great octopus of opportunity with the content and at the core. Cool. If you have a minute, just kind of for the future, can you describe and talk just a little bit about Agility's MCP server? I'd almost like to have a dedicated back and forth on that.
Yeah, sure. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is like essentially, I think of it as a layer on top of our API. So we have our API, which allows you programmatically to put things into Agility and take things out, essentially, like save stuff, delete stuff, whatever. The MCP is a layer on top of that. It's not just a wrapper, but what it does is it has human instructions that are for the AI, that how each thing works. So like, for instance, when you're going to save a content model or get a content model, it has a title, but it has all these different fields in a content model. What do all those field types actually mean? What is a text field versus a date field versus a linked content field that has nested content? Mm-hmm. All of those permutations and iterations of what that can mean is described in detail in there. You can't put that level of detail in an API. So an API needs to be interpreted by a developer in order to utilize it, right? That's one of the skills that a developer brings to their job. I know which API to use because I know what these field types are and all those different things. Whereas AI, it comes in as like, I don't know anything. But it learns how to use your API from the MCP server. That's how I think about it. So the MCP server has that extra knowledge. And then Now the AI agent, once you register that, there's two things that happen. One is like you have the URL of the MCP server, and then it does an OAuth connection. So when you add it to Claude, it's going to log in to Agility as whoever is operating that. So essentially the AI agent now, that whether it be Claude or Gemini or whatever, is going to act on behalf of whoever just logged in. And what's cool about that is it has a refresh token, so you don't have to log in all the time. So your Claude's going to stay logged in for you, but then it's going to ask you when it wants to use a particular tool. And you can think of the high-level operations like save a content item, get a content item, list some content items. Those are different tools that can operate against any Agility CMS instance. So my instance has like an identifier, and it understands everything I have access to. And so it can't do anything that I can't do. But it's going to ask permission before it does stuff and kind of give me a hint about what it's going to do before it starts. It's like, hey, you want me to save this page or get this page or save that content item? But once it starts rolling, you can actually do a lot of things really fast with it if you have an intent of doing that. But what I think is a superpower is you create like a project or a skill in something like Claude. And I think skills are going to become a standard. I think they're actually becoming a standard now, so that every agent will have that, because you can tune the prompt essentially, or the context of what you're trying to do into a skill that might be like create blog post. And so that might have some hints that even further refines how the AI agent is going to call your MCP servers. And it might actually use multiple. Like a lot of the times we use Jira because we use Jira for task management. So it's going to use the Jira MCP server, the Agility MCP server, sometimes the Figma MCP server, because that's where the designs are, and to pull all those things together. And so we have skills that we've created that are across our whole organization, so that anyone can do that stuff, and they don't have to do these really detailed prompts to kind of get it to work exactly as they want. So the MCP server really is just that layer on top of the API that teaches AI how to do stuff, and then you can further refine that with a skill.
Awesome. How do folks, what's a right way of phrasing this? When is the right time for someone to be considering Agility? Kind of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's usually two times. One is like they don't have any CMS at all, which is so many folks, where they have like piles of HTML files that have been sitting there that they've been using tools to generate. So if they don't have any, if you're basically an enterprise company where you're trying to like generate better content operations, if it takes you a week to get content out the door, or sometimes it's 6 weeks to get a developer to like type out the HTML file, like I'm not shitting you right now, that's happens. At a pharmaceutical company that was their content pipeline. Send an email to a developer and have them type it out. If that's you need Agility right now. We can help you. But a lot of times it's folks coming from like a Sitecore AEM, where they're looking at their renewal and they're thinking, is this right for me anymore? Sometimes their partner doesn't do those things anymore. That's happened too, where it's like, we don't have anybody to code up our whatever website. And so they're looking for a vendor. They're seeing that that's actually really expensive to find that developer, because there's a premium that gets charged sometimes. So they're thinking, man, this renewal is looking really scary now. And they start searching around for other options. And it could be because we're Canadian, could be because we're headless, could be because we have page management. There's all these other things now that people start to consider Agility for. I think people choose Agility, honestly, because they talk to a human. Yeah. And we have a very consultative sales process. We don't try to sell you anything. We try to ask about your needs. So that's, I think, what we do the best at from a sales organization, is take what somebody wants and translate that to actual customer needs that will serve them in the long term, which is why our customer lifetime is like in excess of 15 years. People stay with Agility because it's like those needs are met from day one, and then we continue to work hard to meet those needs.
Yeah, you keep adding value, and it's kind of a testament to our partnership as well, and just awfully fun watching your team grow. And that's really exciting. I just noticed we're like 10 minutes over time, and it had no idea. It's just so much fun chatting with you.
Yeah, love it.
I don't know if I introduced myself. I'm Chris. I'm the founder of Dotfusion. We're an implementation organization. I spend most of my time helping architect content operations, and we just love Agility as the hub of all of that. We'll leave our contact information in LinkedIn, and you're connected to this video now if anyone needs to reach out to you. Do they just give you a call, send an email? Is there someone they should touch base with, Joel, over there, that's the best person for an introductory chat?
Well, you can always email me, joel@agilitycms.com. We also have sales@agilitycms.com if you want to talk to a sales rep, but I'm pretty interesting. Don't even talk to me.
I find so too. Like, where else do I get to chat with the CTO of like a global CMS? I really appreciate it.
Email, I answer every single one, and I spend a legitimate time, like a big portion of my time, just answering communication from outside folks, because I think that's one of the most important things that I can do, especially if it's technical in nature and a legitimate question. That's what revs me up for sure. Super
cool. All right, we're going to wind things down. I'm going to click some buttons to end the stream. Thank you very much. Just a super great chat. And stay tuned the next couple of weeks for our next episode. Joel, thanks a lot from Agility CMS. Right on,
man. Right on.
Okay. I'm going to click this button. Hey.